This is the Chuck Smith Show on Cape Atlantic Live, giving you the latest news on all things Mainland Regional football. Now here's your host, Nick Kosko, and Mustangs head coach, Chuck Smith.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Chuck Smith Show right here on Cape Atlantic Live. I'm your host, Nick Kosko. With me, as always, is Mainland football head coach Chuck Smith. Coach, appreciate you joining me as always. 5-0 now for your Mustangs. Big game on Friday night against Bridgeton. But before we get into that, of course, the Hamilton win, we were just talking about it last week. You know, that was going to be the game of the week, one of the best games of the year, especially in South Jersey Group 4. You guys come out on top 14-7 over the Blue Devils on the road, no less. Just first reactions to that big win on Friday night.
It was a huge win, obviously. I mean, you go against a very well-coached Hamilton Blue Devils football team that, they were going to be a battle. They were a great team last year, lost in the finals to Millville, and had that game till the very end. Very, very reminiscent of our game the following week with Millville. One of the top running backs in all of South Jersey. And, Coach Razzo does a great job with those guys, and those guys have been together a long time. You knew you were in for a battle, especially going to Hamilton. But it felt good to come away with a victory, believe me. And it wasn't easy, and we knew it wouldn't be easy. It come down to a game of inches and who made one more mistake than the other team. And that's kind of how it panned out. If you like defensive football, that was a game to go see. Both defenses played tremendous that night.
Yeah, I was just about to say, when you guys – usually play, there's a lot of scoring. You guys have a very run-oriented attack, can mix in the passing as well, but the scoring is just way up here. But obviously you guys are one of the best teams in South Jersey, if not the entire state right now, for a reason. That hard-nosed defense, we've talked about it pretty much each week. I have to say, hats off to your defense. What was that performance like, knowing that you held a pretty explosive, if not really physical, Hamilton offense to just 7 points all night?
Yeah, it's a tribute to our defensive staff, led by Tim Watson, who's the defensive coordinator. And those guys really put a lot of time and effort into game planning. And it starts on Saturday afternoon when we get done watching film of the previous night's opponent. And we kind of turn the page right away and we start doing some preliminary work on that. And I know the guys work on Sundays, even though that's everybody's day off. And then Mondays we really hit the grindstone and kind of do a little walkthrough out in the field, but then we have a big coaches meeting afterwards. And the defensive staff does their work. And it's Tim and it's Antoine Lewis does our defensive line. And, Billy Kern takes care of the back end, the secondary, and, along with a bunch of other head coaches. But those three guys really spearhead the charge and just really do such a tremendous job scouting an opponent, game planning for it. And the kids rose to the occasion and executed the game plan almost to a T. I mean, there were a couple times Hamilton did break some runs on us and moved the ball a little bit here and there, but, we never gave up more than like 2 or 3 big plays in a series. They hit us in one series, the series that they actually scored on, where they converted a third, and I think it was like 18, and they ran a quarterback draw and hit it big, and then the next play they scored a touchdown 31-yard run. Other than those, the team really knocked down a lot of the big plays. They did a great job defending the pass and taking care and bottling up. We knew the running back would get some runs here and there. He's too good, and they're too good of a team blocking up front with Coach DeRosa leading the charge with their O-line. But the kids really did a nice job of containing the running back Smith.
Yeah, no doubt. Kenny Smith, one of the most explosive backs, as we talked about just last week as well. You just mentioned how those big plays came. You knew they were going to come a little bit. You just basically had to limit them. Was there any moment in the game where you're like, oh my God, if he breaks one here, like we're going to be, our backs are up against the wall? I mean, was there any feeling like that at any point during the game?
Yeah, I guess whenever he touches the ball, it could just go. He reminds me a lot of the kid Parker at EHT back in the 90s when they won like 2 back-to-back state championships. That kid, you would contain him all game, and all of a sudden he breaks a 70-yard touchdown. And that was the feeling I had with the Smith kid last week. And even just watch him, it's just a matter of time, and he could just take one to the house. And but defense played well, and our defense plays fast and they're very aggressive. And all the scores except for our last one really came on short fields for the other team. Our first score was on a half of the field. We got the ball midfield. When they scored, they got the ball midfield. So it really showed how well the defenses were playing on both sides.
Absolutely. And just one more on your defense's performance. We talked about Drew Craig last week, the Hamilton quarterback, the transfer that came in, really made the Blue Devils offense more dynamic here in 2023. What can you say about your secondary, the pass rush, basically the entire defense's performance and containing Craig out of, again, a couple plays here and there, but he really didn't. I would say he didn't really get going.
Yeah, it was more of a coverage scheme that we had. We had a little bit of pressure on, but I think we only had one sack, in the game. He did a good job of avoiding pressure and getting rid of the ball quickly, but geez, excuse me. Even the times when they had the ball one time in the first half down deep on us, the two plays they ran were just really great coverage, and there really wasn't an open receiver there, so he didn't really have an option. So it was a tribute really to our secondary on that.
No doubt. So now the bigger picture before we look ahead to Friday against Bridgeton, which they are coming to town to the Corral. You guys are now number 1 according to Gridiron on the UPR rankings. Number 1 in South Jersey Group 4, Millville. Your opponent from the state semifinal last year is number 2. So right now, as it stands, you guys would be in separate sectionals once again. And I know again, it's one game at a time, but I would say that has to give you confidence right now, knowing the quality of football you guys are playing. A big win over Hamilton, and then they're number 6, by the way. And again, no slouch, the Blue Devils right there. South Jersey Group 4 we know is loaded, but you guys are number 1 right now, basically in this half of the state. What does that mean to your team right now, knowing that you guys have 5-0 record and the playoffs are they're only a few weeks away, but right now you're sitting pretty at number 1.
Yeah, it's around the corner. Goal is always to try to get a home playoff game, and we've put ourselves in position right now to have that, barring any unforeseen things that happen. And a lot can happen in the next 4 weeks too. That whole bracket could be turned around a little bit. But I think the teams that are at the top right now will all have home games, and that was important for us because there's nothing like playing at the Mustang Corral. I mean, we thrive on that. And I think we've put ourselves in a position to at least have 2 games there. I don't know if we can hold on to the 1 seed, just with what's coming up, and you never know what happens. But I think we're in a good position to be at home for a little bit in the playoffs, which was a goal in the beginning of the season for us.
No, that definitely helped you guys last year as well, having those first 2 playoff games at home before hitting the road for the sectional final, which, of course, you guys won to get to the state semifinal. So what's it like coming back home now? You guys have played 2 road games, at Atlantic City, at Hamilton. Again, Atlantic City turned into a shootout win for you guys, of course, more of a shootout than the Stephen Ordilli show in the second half. And last week, more of a grinded-out game. So what's it like coming back home now after basically 2 opponents that were really highlighted on the schedule this year? Now you come back home for Bridgeton.
Yeah, it's nice. It's always nice to be at home. It's a lot better being home against Bridgeton than driving to Bridgeton. It's a long bus ride. But it's a big night at Mainland for us this Friday, too, because we're honoring our newest inductees of the Athletic Hall of Fame. We have some football team members in there. Joe Weiss, who graduated in 2000, played at Princeton, played on our 99 team. John Rochford, who was a captain on our 2002 state championship team, played at University of Miami. And Jim Cooper Jr., who was our place kicker, who was all South Jersey, All-American, played at Temple and Wagner University. And then we have some contributors because our community is so great. Even though we're a very small community, our community really backs the efforts of the football program, not just football, our whole entire school. And the Doc's Place in Summers Point, who's like our team caterer, they're being inducted as contributors. And, of course, Jimmy and Jeff Thomas, who are the owners now of Charlie's Bar in Summers Point, being inducted also. So it's a nice night at Mainland for all that. And on top of that, we're hosting youth football night. So we're inviting all the little kids from the programs from Linwood, Northfield, and Summers Point to come. And that's always a great thing for the kids on our team because they don't realize how these kids look at them. They're like the NFL players for these little kids, They play with their little brothers and stuff like that. And when they come to the field, it really is like electric, to say the least, because all the kids are on the field while we're doing pregame warmups, and they're yelling to the kids nonstop, And I know the kids get really excited about it, and then the youth guys like form a tunnel when the kids come back out for the field to take it for the game. And it's a lot of fun, So we're really looking forward to this Friday night.
Yeah, I was about to say, knowing that it is a big night, not only is it a youth night where it's like you have the future of Mainland football and the past of Mainland football. What is that night like together? I mean, was that actually planned this year to have both of those things happen on the same night? Or I'm curious how that comes about. And of course, it's a great celebration of Mainland regional football with all the communities.
Yeah, it's one of those things in the beginning of the season. You sit there with the athletic director, and we always have youth football night every year. And we put all those events on, and we only do a Hall of Fame induction once every 5 years. And our athletic director, Mike Gatley, is retiring after this year, I should say, school year. And we kind of put the pressure on him to have one more induction while he's still in charge instead of it going to a new person.
Yeah.
They really don't know how Mainland works possibly. So he decided to go ahead with that. And we just had fit a night because, there's only so many home games you have. And you try to do so many different things just to honor people and recognize people who are important in your community and your football program. And it just happened to be the same night this year.
Gotta love it. So we'll get into the Bridgeton game in a second. For now, we'll take a quick break. You're watching the Chuck Smith Show right here on Cape Atlantic Live.
This Cape Atlantic Live production of Mainland Regional Football is brought to you by Charlie's Bar and Restaurant, The Docks Place, Orio's Bar and Grill, Shore Orthopedic, Golden Nugget Atlantic City Casino Hotel and Marina, Edmunds GovTech, Darcy Johnson Day Law Firm, and Ulmer's Appliance Service.
Smith Show right here on Cape Atlantic Live. Nick Kosko alongside Mainland football head coach Chuck Smith. So, Coach, Bridgeton on Friday. Now, again, they're in a bit of a rebuilding phase. This is a team that won 6 games just 2 years ago. Head coach Stephen Lane doing a nice job over there with the Bulldogs program, trying to recapture the magic in that Group 5 school over there. Watching a little film on them this week. They have a lot of size up front and on both sides of the football. And they do have a lot of speed as they traditionally do. Just your first takeaways from this Bridgeton team coming up on Friday.
They have game breakers over there. Coach Lane's done a good job over there keeping it together. It's a tough season for them right now. They lost some games a little one-handed early on. And then last week they were in a very competitive game against Cumberland, losing I think it was 37-27. Mm-hmm. But they very well could have won that game at some points in that, really turned it around. And the thing I took and I was impressed by them is they're staying competitive. There's no quit, there's no folding down. Especially last week when Cumberland kind of got up on them, they kept fighting. That's what you want to see when you're trying to build a program. Sometimes the cards are stacked against you, and what the hand is being dealt and all that. But as long as you can get that competitiveness into the kids and they buy into it, eventually things can turn around. And they're not that far removed from having a very competitive football program over there. It's just one of those things I always believe many public schools, ourselves included, kind of ride that roller coaster. You're up for a couple of years and then classes graduate and you might take a little dip for a little bit. But the thing is, you don't want that dip to go too low because, you don't want that program to bottom out. You want to keep the kids competitive and keep rebuilding and have that belief in there. So when the next, group of athletes comes in, you're back on top again. It doesn't take that long to get back there. And there's little peaks and valleys all the time. It's high school sports. That's what makes it so fun, keeps you humble all the time. You think you're king of the hill one day and next day you're back down there digging it back up, But they do. They have a lot of speed on their team. They're fast. They like you said, they have some size up front. Our guys, the big thing we had to say to our guys is, hey, they might be 0-5 coming in here, but you know what? You don't want to be the team that loses to them. So we're trying to keep our focus on the task at hand and not looking past them to the games that are coming up, and that's always, one of those things that you try to do with the high school kids because it's easy to start looking down the road. Hey, the playoffs are coming up. A lot of people think we got through the teeth of our schedule now. After the Hamilton game, it kind of dips off. But, there's a lot of big teams coming up and a lot of competitive teams and some teams that really have some firepower there. And, you look past them and next thing you know, you're getting snuck, and then all of a sudden things can turn around on your season right away.
Right, because you just mentioned before how last week you didn't, you knew you were going to give up a couple big plays here and there. It was just about containing them, and of course, you guys ended up grinding out a win over Hamilton. It just seems like a team like Bridgeton. I don't want to say maybe it's the wrong phrase to say nothing to lose there, but they're out there to prove to themselves and I guess to everybody else that they can really compete with one of the better teams in the state, such as your squad as well. And I got to imagine that makes them pretty hungry and somewhat, probably, but maybe a bit of a dangerous team late in the season.
Yeah, I know there was times when I was coaching at Oakcrest or even at Mainland where you walked into a game where you were the decided underdog. And me being an offensive guy, I was like, hey, just like you said, we have nothing to lose. Let's go out there and have fun and guns blazing and let's go, And a lot of times we gave some teams some fits. And I know, when you start doing that to another team, it gets uptight really quick, And next thing you know, they're in a ball game that they thought they didn't want to be in, And that's the thing we have to really come out and business at hand right from the get-go, Friday night. And that's our mentality this whole week.
Absolutely. So one more on Bridgeton, just as the program as a whole, as you mentioned, how they're not too far removed from obviously having some good success. And I remember even when I played, a long time ago, this one, even youth football, their youth football program had athletes all over the field. I'm talking undefeated 7th and 8th grade teams dominating this South Jersey area. And then just at the high school level, it's like you said, it's peaks and valleys. What do you think a program like Bridgeton is it like more one of those slow burn developmental things where you just have to be patient with a program like that before you get back to the 6, 7, 8 win seasons?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different things in there. I don't know the total dynamic of their program, the makeup of it. A lot of times you have to have a lot of discipline, and a lot of kids cower from the discipline. You have to have structure, because if you don't have that, then your program runs amok. It's a variety of things, I think, and I don't know how much school choice affects them, with all these transfer things going on. You lose a couple guys, you lose 2 guys, that could be 4 starters, really, 2 on each side of the football, and I just know in today's world, it's so different now in high school football with this transfer thing. You see all these schools all of a sudden getting 4, 5, 6 transfers, and it's just a different world that you're in. It's almost like in a quasi college type mode. Not that you're out recruiting those kids, but
right,
they're able to move around a little bit more easily than they have been in the past.
Right. We've seen it this year too, where, you sit out 3 weeks and you have 5 new players that they're just waiting to play.
Exactly. And it's different now, and I don't know how much that has affected them also, but I have faith in that team. You never want to see, even being an opposing coach, you never want to see a program really be down. You want to see them come back and rebuild and be competitive, because it makes it better for everybody, And I know they'll be back around sooner than later.
Absolutely. It wasn't too far. Like we said, not too far removed from a pretty good season where, they did win 6 games, played a long schedule a couple years ago, going 6-5, as you said, no quitting them. So they are sure to bring the fight on Friday night. And you can catch that game, of course, on Cape Atlantic Live, 6 p.m. live from the Mustang Corrals. Mainland hosts Bridgeton, looking to keep the undefeated season going as we get closer and closer to the playoffs. Coach, appreciate the time as always. We'll see you Friday. And of course, we will always talk again next week.
Thanks a lot, Nick. Really appreciate it.
Chuck Smith Show right here on Cape Atlantic Live.